Shalom. There were 12 tribes of Israel. 12 tribes of Israel. 2 of these tribes separated and they created their own independent entity, which is referred to in the Bible as Israel, when Israel is juxtaposed to Judah, the name of the second entity. This northern entity of Israel is also referred to as Samaria, in Hebrew Shomron, or as Ephraim, after the name of its leading tribe. These separated 10 tribes lost conscious awareness of their ancestry and they moved to Europe in stages. They are often referred to as the lost 10 tribes of Israel. From Europe, they eventually populated North America and other regions. The book of Numbers in the Bible lists the tribes as they came out of Egypt and they camped in the wilderness before entering the land of Canaan. And these encampments have some significance concerning the future migrations of the Israelite tribes. The biblical book of Numbers gives the order of their encampment in the wilderness. They encamped around the Mishkan, around the tabernacle, and starting from the eastern side, you had Judah, Issachar, Zebulun. In the south, you had Reuben, Simeon, Gad. And in the west, Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin. In the north, you had Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. The family descent, we have to remember that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were the forefathers of the Israelite peoples. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob was renamed in Israel. The names Jacob and Israel are interchangeable. Jacob had 4 wives. 4 wives. Out of these wives, 2 of them were sisters. Rachel and Leah were sisters. Zilpah was the handmaiden of Leah, and Bilhah was the handmaiden of Rachel. From Leah, Jacob begat Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Zebulun, Issachar. They were the 6 sons that Jacob begat from Leah. Jacob also begat from Zilpah, the maidservant of Leah, the tribes of Asher and Gad. From Rachel, the sister of Leah, Jacob begat the tribes of Joseph and Benjamin. They were the sons of Jacob and Rachel. Joseph married Asenath, and from whom he begat Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh and Ephraim were to become separate tribes in their own right. In effect, you had 13 tribes, as we shall explain presently. From Bilhah, the maidservant of Rachel, Jacob begat the tribes of Dan and Naphtali. So there were actually 13 tribes, but a quorum of 12 was maintained, either counting the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh as the one tribe of Joseph, and including Levi as a separate tribe, or not including Levi and counting Ephraim and Manasseh, the sons of Joseph, as each being a separate tribe in its own right. Levi was a tribe of priests, officiates, and ministers, and he was to be scattered amongst the other tribes and not to receive his own tribal inheritance. When the tribes divided into 2 separate entities of Israel and Judah, the tribe of Levi was also to be found amongst the northern tribes. All of them moved out and went to the south, and they joined up with Judah. So the Judah came to comprise the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, as well as representative minorities of the other tribes. Reuben gave rise to the French of France. In the Bible, France is referred to as Zarephath, That is the name given to France in the Bible, in the book of Obadiah. The name Zarephath is also that of a settlement to the north of a settlement to the north of Tyre, belonging to Sidon, also known as Zarephath. Today it is known as Sarepta or Saraphant, Lebanon. And it is famous because the prophet Elijah, it was famous because the prophet Eliyahu had been commanded to go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and sojourn there. Behold, I have commanded a widow there to feed you, and the miracles happened there. This name was later also applied to the region of France. The Hebrew name for France is Zarephath, and was applied to France at an early stage. And this term Zarephath was applied especially to France, but by extension, according to the context, may also include Belgium, the Netherlands, and Britain. The name Zarephath is found in the book of Obadiah 120, as translated by the King James Version, and it says this, and the captivity of this host of the children of Israel shall possess that of the Canaanites, even unto Zarephath. The captivity of Jerusalem, which is in Sepharad, shall possess the cities of the south. So here is referring to the captivity of the children of Israel, that is of the northern 10 tribes, and also to the captivity of Jerusalem, which is the southern tribes, which came later. And according to the different commentators, in this verse, the captivity of the host of the children of Israel shall possess that of the Canaanites, even unto Zarephath. This verse, the Canaanites, means Germany. Apparently many of the Canaanite people settled in Germany. Zarephath means France, or France and Britain, or France in the region to the north of France, or all of those areas together. Sepharad means Spain. It refers here to the exile of people from Judah to Spain. So taking all these exiles, taking all these sources together, we get the following. We can rewrite or understand the verse in Obadiah 120 to say in this first exile, that is of the 10 tribes of Israel, see Rashi, who dwelt from Germany and Canaanites and Holland, even unto France, meaning even unto France and England, and the captivity of the Jews of Jerusalem in Spain shall possess the cities of the south. So the Bible codes for the name Zarephath connected to the clans of Reuben, to the descendants of Reuben. The Jewish biblical commentator Rashi on the book of Obadiah says that the lost 10 tribes of Israel migrated into Zarephath, into France. He says Zarephath means France, the land of France. Then Isaac Abarbanel equated Zarephath with both France and England together. Maimonides in the book of Redemption considers Zarephath to encompass all of the northern region, North European region, where he says the lost 10 tribes were to be found still in his time, and that they were destined to wage war against the forces of Edom, as predicted in the Bible. Edom is usually taken as referring to Germany, may also include Rome or other entities. Rashi lived in 1040 to 1105, and he lived in Champagne in France, in northern France, and he understands this verse of Abijah concerning Zelophehad, he understands it as saying the first exile of the children of Israel, that is the children of Israel, were exiled. The first ones to be exiled were the lost 10 tribes of Israel. So he says, Rashi says, the first exile of the children of Israel, who were exiled from the 10 tribes, that is the northern 10 tribes, to the land of Canaanites and to Zarephath. And the exegetes, that is the commentators, say, according to Rashi, say that Zarephath means a kingdom called France, in common language. Rashi says the lost 10 tribes are in France. Ibn Ezra, Abraham Ibn Ezra, 1092 to 1167, he said from the Canaanites, says we fled from the great man at the land of Alamon, that is Germany, and the Canaanites who fled from before the children of Israel when they came into the land. So to Zarephath means France. The Maimonides, that is Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, 1194 to 1270, his book of Redemption, chapter 1, he says a vision of Abijah, the house of Joseph, refers to the 10 tribes. The house of Joseph refers to the 10 tribes who are exiled and still are in their place of exile, the exile of Zarephath and Canaan, which are in the farthest north. Concerning Reuben, we find Reuben to have been predominant amongst the Israelites in Zarephath. The Klei Yakar, Rabbi Shlomo Ephraim ben Aaron Runshitz, 1550 to 1619, he makes the following remarks. Reuben was an heroic warrior, imparting strength and power to the people. To achieve his victories, Reuben required overwhelming numbers and great martial qualities. These were given unto him, but not to a sufficient degree to acquire preeminence over his brothers. The blessing of peace will also be given over him. The blessing of peace will also be given to him, and an equal standing with his brothers, but not more than that. Then Isaac ben Yehuda Abarbanel, 1437 to 1508, also has remarks that are pertinent to us. He says Zarephath is France, so to the exile of Sepharad is Spain, and that you not err, do not make the mistake, just because Zarephath is spoken of, and Angleterre, that is England and French Angleterre, is not recorded, but there too did the exiles go, that is the 10 tribes also went to England. And lo and behold, that island is considered part of Zarephath. In the beginning belonged to it. In the ancient books they called it the Isle of Zarephath, the Isle of France. Even though it later separated itself from Zarephath, became, that is from France, became a kingdom in its own right. So he identifies England, the prophecies concerning Zarephath, as meaning both France and England. Numbers 2, 3 to 33 gives a marching order of the tribes in the wilderness. The section of Reuben is in the south together with Simeon and Gad. France, the area of France was eventually conquered by the Franks, people known as the Franks, from Germany. The branch of the Franks that led the conquest was known as Ripuari. Ripuari is understood to mean riverbank from the Latin. But the Latins, the Romans, often understood names, interpreted names to have meanings in their own language. So their understanding of the meaning of the name is not reliable, not necessarily reliable. The Puari Franks are also known as Ribuari, or as Ruby, and these are forms of the name Reuben. And they conquered France and gave France its present dimensions, its present political structure. And Reuben had been together with Simeon and Gad, the tribes of Simeon and Gad. Gad we identify with the Goths and related peoples in Scandinavia. In ancient Hebrew, the name Gad and Goth the terms Gad and Goth are interchangeable in Hebrew, where the word spelled as Gad can also be pronounced as Goth. Also, the Goths themselves refer to themselves as Gad or Gud. So these names are interchangeable. The Goths are known as Gad. That is not the only reason why we identify the Goths with Gad, but that is one of the reasons. The Goths were also in southern France. The area around Narbonne was referred to as Gothia. Also, with other elements connected to them, we had the Gadenni in Scotland. Who were also possibly related prior to the Frankish conquest. Prior to the conquest by the Franks, Gaul, France had been known as Gaul. It had been divided into Gauls, Galatae, and Belgae. The Gauls were also known as Galli. This is how the Romans referred to them, and their name is reminiscent of Gaulonitis in northern Israel. There was an area of Reuben in northern Israel, east of the Jordan, in the area of Reuben, which is known as Gaulonitis. Already indicates a connection with Gaul. Gaul is another name for France. Also, France has been known as Gaul. It was divided into Gauls, the Galatae and the Belgae, as we said. And the Gauls also known as Galli, and they have a name similar to that of Gaulonitis in northern Israel in the area of Reuben. Also the Galatae have a name similar to that of the Gilead in northeast Israel. Gilead was the area of Reuben and of half tribe of Manasseh and of Gad, of the area of the tribes east of the Jordan that were belonging to, of which Reuben was part of. So to the Belgae may have been descended from Belak, son of Benjamin. Belak is spelled as Bela, but it's pronounced as Belak, so it could easily have become pronounced in Western mouths as Belgae. And Belak was the son of Benjamin, Genesis 46:21. Of the Belgae were an important people. They were present in southeast Ireland and in southern England, as well as in the area known as Belgium and northern France. They may have been descended from Benjamin, even though Benjamin was part of the southern kingdom. Elements from Benjamin may well have attached themselves somehow or other to the northern tribes. At all events, the southern group consisted of Reuben, Simeon, and Gad. Gad is to be identified with the Goths and other peoples in Scandinavia. And the term Gad and Goth were interchangeable. Goth is another way of pronouncing Gad. And a portion of the Goths, as well as being in Scandinavia, they also settled in France. The Visigoths conquered one stage a good portion of southern France and also Spain, most of Spain. The around Narbonne in southeast Spain was referred to as Gothia. Reuben, Simeon, and Gad in the southern section. Simeon was also to be found in the area of Brittany, western France, with the Samnites in western France from Simeon. Also the Namnites from Namiel of Simeon, Numbers 26:12, in the same area in Brittany in western France. And we also find the related peoples in Ireland, in Irish mythology. Simeon, son of Esru being Israel, was one of their ancestors. Simeon is similar to Simeon in Hebrew. And so too we have the Semeni in eastern Britain under Roman times. And the Achini from Yachin, the son of Simeon, See, Numbers 26:12 was also in that area. The Achini were the tribe of Boudica, the queen Boudica, who rebelled against the Romans. So she too was related to Simeon, the tribe of Simeon. There have been prophesied that Simeon would be dispersed along with Levi amongst the rest of Israel. See Genesis 49:7. The land of Israel, Reuben, was east of the Jordan. Reuben adjoined the area of Moab. Descendants of Moab may have moved into Spain, which today adorns France. So we have these different elements, different indications that France was dominated by the tribe of Reuben. That is, the Israelites in France were dominated by the tribe of Reuben. We don't know to what degree. We don't know to what degree. We don't know to what degree the Israelites are present amongst the French population. There are other sources, even Rashi, who identifies Reuben in this source, as who identifies France as belonging to the Russian tribes of Israel, Zarapah. Elsewhere also identifies France with Edom. So apparently France is a mixed population. You have Edomites, and you have Israelites, and you have others amongst the French people. But the Israelites are present there. And amongst the Israelites, the tribes of Reuben, Simeon, Gad seem to have occupied a major position. And historically, the French have been a progressive people with some problems, with frequent problems here and there. But on the whole, they have been enlightened and civilized, have been done help forward the course of civilization, the course of philosophy and of art, and of civilized behavior, with many exceptions. So that is the way the world goes. Thank you, may the Lord God of Israel bless you all.